Your brand may be staying on top of current trends, but are you agile enough to stay relevant, resilient, and successful as customers, competition, and the world continues to change at a breakneck pace? I'm thrilled to share the newly revised version of my first book, The Agile Brand. I'm calling it The Agile Brand Revisited. It's been updated to reflect our continually changing world, and it provides 7 principles that form the backbone of an agile brand, offering detailed insights and actionable steps for incorporating them into your business strategy. This is the book that started it all, and I'm excited to share it with you. It's now available in print and digital formats and available everywhere. Learn more by going to the Agile Brand Guide website at www.agilebrandguide.com. Welcome to Season 4 of The Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom, where we discuss business agility through customer experience, employee experience, and digital transformation. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom. The Agile World podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. To read more about the topics discussed on this show, you can go to my website at gregkihlstrom.com and read my latest articles or get a copy of my latest book, Meaningful Measurement of the Customer Experience, now available on Amazon and other retailers. My name is Greg Kihlstrom, and I'm the host of the Agile Brand podcast. Today, we're going to talk about harnessing the power of data to improve the customer experience. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome Kaz Ohta, CEO and co-founder at Treasure Data, one of the leading customer data platforms. Kaz, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me today, Greg.
Yeah, looking forward to talking about this topic with you. But before we get started, why don't we get started with you giving a little background on Treasure Data for those that may not be already familiar with it?
Sure. Treasure Data provides CDP customer data platform. We specifically help global enterprise brands to achieve what we call connected customer experiences. And, I started this company 12 years ago. It was just 3 people. Now that we have 700 people across 20 countries, so quite a lot of growth.
Yeah, definitely. Some phenomenal growth there. So let's dive in here. So there's a very famous infographic for any of us in the marketing technology world by Scott Brinker of Chief Martech that outlines the marketing technology landscape that's grown over the years. So I think, the latest version has over 8,000 different platforms listed on it. And as you and I well know, that number continues to grow, right? So, let's, while not all companies use even a small fraction of those 8,000 or even the categories that they represent, there's still a lot of fragmentation out there. So I want to talk about that a little bit.
Sure.
So, companies rarely have the issue of not having enough data to work with, but usually the opposite. They have too many systems, too many platforms, and just too much data in general to really make meaningful conclusions from. What are some of the challenges that this causes?
Yeah, sure. I personally am a consumer too, right? Okay.
Yeah.
For example, one day I got this notification from one of my internet cable providers saying, hey, finally, fiber is available in your area. I was so excited by working remotely so long, right?
Yeah.
So I immediately called contact center, needed to wait like 30 minutes. They didn't know about my plan. They're asking my phone number, even though I'm calling from my phone.
Right.
They of course didn't know about that fiber plan. I was so frustrated. So I went to the retail store for that cable provider shop, and then same story happened. I needed to wait. They're asking my phone number. They didn't know about that fiber plan, right? Yeah. So really the challenge is, okay, you have to treat the customer in any of the channels you have. Otherwise, consumers are now getting more digitalized and then getting used to all the experiences you're getting from like Google, Amazon, Facebooks of the world. You have to catch up with that, right? Yeah. Otherwise, they will switch your brand.
Yeah. So what's I'm sure there's a lot that companies need to do, but what's some of the best ways for companies and brands to solve some of these challenges that solve, basically the problem that you just described, which I'll definitely say I think we can all relate to.
Yeah. So according to McKinsey, 60% of customer journey is now happening in the digital world. This gets tripled after pandemic, right? So every company on the earth right now has to understand the customer by data and using the data to personalize the experience. And then the marketing technology has evolved from single channel to omni-channel. And now customer experience is becoming more like corporate wide, what we call omni department, right? So every executives of any major brand has to take this as a number one priority.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and at the end of the day, brands need to tie their customer data together in order to gain more value out of it, both for the business as well as the customer. What do customers have to gain? I mean, brands can better utilize. They know who needs what when, and they can do that more easily. But what do customers have to gain when companies are able to more meaningfully use their data?
Yeah, so I think there are two ways. Like one is, okay, you can get more personalized offer, personalized experience, at the right time, at the right moment, right? So that's just definitely the benefit for the customer. And then brands shouldn't spam a lot of marketing messages for them, right? So you can also control the frequency you're communicating with the customer. That's a benefit for the consumer side. Also, at the same time, customer can get more transparency about how the data gets used, right? So a lot of consumers are now concerned about, okay, I'm giving this my data to this brand. How is this data gets used, right? So I think by consolidating customer data in a transparent way, you can provide more trust and then transparency for the consumer. So I think those two are the main benefits for the consumers.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And so, as brands do this, and they do this better, they're stitching together this data better, they're providing better customer experiences. How do brands measure and understand how well they're doing with collecting and with really putting together this customer data with the data they collect? What are some of the metrics that they can use to help them continue to improve in their ability to use customer data successfully?
Yeah, I would say this is really simple from CEO point of view. They, at the end of the day, looking for financial result, right?
Yeah.
So we see some brands using customer data to get hundreds of millions of dollars of margin and revenue increase. At the same time, bottom side, like making more organization more efficiently, and then successfully reducing the cost of hundreds of millions of dollars. So that's what ultimately executives are looking for. Yeah. But I think for the specifically, marketing department, service department, sales department, they can look at a little more sub KPIs, right? Okay, for marketing, it's probably around like customer acquisition, retention. For service, NPS, Net Promoter Score, and also as sales, maybe conversion rate or customer satisfaction rate. Right. So I think there are some departmental KPIs and then the corporate wide KPIs.
Yeah, definitely. So now let's dive in a little deeper here and talk about this changing marketing technology landscape from a few perspectives. And the first you touched on a little bit, talking about consumer data privacy and data regulation in general, which is, it's certainly GDPR and the EU has been doing a lot there, but there's a lot going on elsewhere, whether that's the state of California or elsewhere throughout the world.
Right.
What effect is this currently having on marketers and their ability to deliver personalized, relevant experiences despite, consumers wanting that privacy?
Yeah, so this is a great topic. Last 10 years or so, 150 out of 200 countries has implemented the consumer data protection laws, right? Starting from GDPR, you mentioned, CCPA, even in like state in the United States, they implemented a specific one too, right? There's also this like a general concerns about like consumers worried about how their data gets used, right? So the trend we're seeing is, okay, 10 years ago, from technology point of view, it was a big data era. So every technology company, brand, collect everything about your consumers and use the data wherever you want. But now with all these regulations, you have to first get the consent from the customer, how the data gets used, right? So starting from a cookie consent, where you get a little bit of pop-up when you go to website, but about the email, about any communication channels, you have to get the consent from the consumer. And then the brand has to make sure the way data gets used is actually following that consent, right?
Yeah.
So that's actually a really interesting and difficult from technology point of view. And that's why, a lot of marketing technology companies and data company even struggle to get the adoption at the enterprise level, because what I see right now is a lot of personalization customer experience project is happening alongside with the privacy project, and that two has to come together.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's interesting how they seem um opposed to one another, but they're, to your point, they're actually being done hand in hand, and I think that's actually a positive thing.
Right. And then if you look at the market landscape, data is the fastest
Yeah.
growing area of segment, but then the second one is privacy. And then we always think those are the two sides of the coin, right? It's not like it's a separate problem. You have to solve it all.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Looking at, I mentioned that the infographic with the 8,000 marketing technology platforms and all that. Just one, curious your thoughts here is, what do you think is one of the more like overhyped areas of marketing technology that may be getting a lot of attention, but may not be worth the attention that it's getting right now?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I always make this mistake as a technologist where, okay,
Yeah.
I, underlooked something and then later on it becomes really popular. So really hard to make a
Yeah.
comment.
Yeah.
But I would say, right now there's too many vendors, as you mentioned, right? And too many categories. But I mean, you have to really think about what's important for you first, right?
Yeah.
What's important for your customer. So don't think about like solution first, right? So there are 8,000 vendors trying to, get into your company and then use them. But again, I was talking with one CMO who said, "Oh, I actually bought 20 solutions last year,
Wow.
and only two are working right now. So I'm ripping off 18." That's
Right.
like, I don't know if that's a good approach, right? You're spending so much time and energy and money for
Yeah.
those solutions, and then you're getting like 10% of solution working, right? So I always advise like, okay, problem first, solution next, right? Don't be confused with the way you introduce new vendors.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, in addition to just the time to implement and integrate from a technology standpoint, it's also there's people there's processes that need to be created around new tools, and there's people that are spending a lot of time on using those tools as well. So yeah, definitely,
Right.
definitely takes some careful consideration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
So the flip side to that last question, what do you think is an area that is not getting enough attention and that marketers should maybe be paying a little more attention to?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say, as I mentioned, customer experience became from single channel to omni channel,
Yeah.
and then it's becoming a corporate way, right? So I was talking with a lot of marketing leader who only thinks about like experiences in this marketing channel. But borrowing my example of this cable company,
Yeah.
internet company, customer experience is everywhere, right? In the service, contact center, and you can also make logistics efficient for your consumers, right? So a lot of conversation with CMO right now is I actually started seeing some of the contact center is reporting to marketing, and then
Yeah.
marketing leader like CMO is in charge of more channels, right? So that's probably something you want to take a look at to
Yeah.
see, okay, contact center is all about efficiency, right? How to make the calls shorter. But okay, is it an opportunity to sell, cross sell, upsell more products? Or at
Yeah.
the same time, that's the last channel you're calling in. So how can we prevent the churn, right? So just think outside of marketing and think about customer experience. That's one area I would like to recommend.
Yeah.
The other things I noticed is, there's this like a general fear about recession next year. And I was talking with a lot of marketing leader and company who has more than 10 billion plus in revenue. will decrease the marketing budget next year, right? Because they just don't see the growth next year. And also, I think a company is cutting a lot of cost,
Right.
and marketing is where you cut the cost first, right? At the same time, within our survey, we also observed that the percentage of your budget spent for analytics has actually been increasing dramatically last 6 months to 9 months period of time. So what that means is your total budget is decreasing, but your investment into data is increasing. And I was asking why. So now, I found out the CEOs are actually now demanding a lot more transparency, return on return, improved customer acquisition cost, right? So traditionally, marketing is a little more black box, and when digital comes in, it becomes a little more transparent. Now, customer experience becoming a lot of omni-channel. So I think marketing leader has to embrace the technology to show the ROI of all of the campaigns, so that those campaigns actually generates more money than others, so that eventually you become more efficient.
Do you think that that's would you say that CEOs and even COOs and other execs and leaders in the org are getting more sophisticated in regards to marketing then?
I think so. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about funnels, right? So marketing in general, creates awareness, gets some lead, trying to convert into more contact, and then sales will close, and then customer success or support will grow that loyalty. Right. So if you're a CEO, you have to optimize this funnel from the top to bottom with the least amount of money, right? And so they would like to see every day that funnel efficiency, conversion rate in each stage is improving.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, let's switch gears here a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about your own background and story, which is pretty remarkable. You moved to the United States without knowing how to speak English, and overcame not only that obstacle, which
Yes.
that kudos to you for your bravery there. And, then went on to co-found Treasure Data as its CTO. You raised $234 million by SoftBank, and grew Treasure Data from 5 million ARR in 2 years to over 25 million over the first 5 years.
Yeah.
What has been your biggest motivation as you've achieved all of this?
Yes, I was probably born as an entrepreneur. My parents run this little pharmacy business.
Yeah.
So I was just looking at them running the business every day, right? And I started the first company when I was 21st, and that was in Japan. So we grew from maybe 5 people to 40 people without taking any VC money. So I have to be more profitable all the time, right? But then I had an opportunity to work with Silicon Valley based company who were VC backed, and they scaled from like 5 people to 500 people in 3-4 years. And I was like, okay, I need to be here and build a global software business, because software can be used anywhere, not just in Japan, right? So I come to the States, and obviously I was 25, nothing to lose, couldn't speak English. But, I can learn a lot. So that's, how we started the company. And we got a lot of luck. So, we just got, first set of angel investor, but I pitched 50 investors, and then they all denied. But we got this one guy called Bill Tai who seeded the initial money. He actually is the angel investor for Zoom, for example, or Canva, right? So he saw the rise of data at that time. It's like 12 years ago, and also the cloud. So initial idea or product was, why don't we provide data analytics infrastructure in the cloud so that everyone can start analyzing the data? Actually, my background was HPC, high performance computing. My professor, when I was in university, built the world's fastest supercomputer. And I was a part of the team to build the file system for that supercomputer. So I had a lot of experience of handling a large amount of data, right? So that gave me an opportunity to, okay, why don't we bring this to the cloud? And at that time, investors were like, okay, who will throw away the data to the cloud, right? Because cloud is just in its early phase. And guess what? Everyone is now doing it, right? So we won that bet. And, later on, we also find out a lot of our customers is using our product to analyze customer data. And then marketing is the end user to analyze customer data. So around 2016, we found this little category called CDP, Customer Data Platform, and decided to go all for it. And since then, we became a CDP, Customer Data Platform company, and empowering 400 world's largest brands. But at some point of the time, there were some tough challenges, like maybe in the early days, we were running out of money in 3 months, right? But we successfully closed big clients. So it's a long journey we came in.
Yeah, no, that's great. And yeah, as you were saying that, I was wondering, the CDP category really hasn't been around for that long. So it sounds like you kind of, found your way into it. Is that right?
Yeah. So, when we started calling ourselves a CDP, it's just maybe, a few vendors. Now we have 150 in the category. Mm-hmm. Everyone started saying we're CDP, but, look at this. We're the number one CDP vendor in terms of market share.
Yeah,
so
that's great. Well, yeah, great story there, and obviously you've had much success. So congratulations on that. So one last question before we wrap up here. What's to kind of go back to the first points that we were talking through from a brand perspective. What's one piece of advice that you would have for marketers that they may be struggling a bit. They've got plenty of customer data, but they're struggling to make the best use of their customer data as they navigate the months ahead?
Right. I mean, we talked about the rise of, digital channels, privacy concerns, and also next year we may experience the budget decrease because of the, possible recession, right? Of all these combined, I will say using customer data is how you approach these trends and problems. Yeah. But I always recommend marketing leaders to think about what is actually customer want, right? What are the experience you want? And maybe you try the competitor's product or experience that might be good, that might be not good, right? So, I always talk with this marketer, hey, I want to have CDP, but it's like, why, right? What are the types of campaign you want to run? What are the types of experience you want to provide? Without that answer, it's really hard for us to help, to be honest, right? We know the technology, we know the market landscape, but without the vision of how you want to treat the customer, it's really hard to make a success together, right? So using customer data is just, the tool, and it's always about think from the goal. That's just one piece of advice.
Great. Well, Kaz, thanks so much for joining the show. For those listening, what's the best way for them to keep up with what you're doing at Treasure Data?
Of course. Yeah. So we have a website, www.treasuredata.com. Again, www.treasuredata.com. So please visit our website. And also for me personally, search Kazuki Ohta on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with you.
Wonderful. Well, again, I'd like to thank Kaz Ohta, CEO and co-founder at Treasure Data, for joining the show. Thanks for listening to The Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom. Talk with you next week. Thanks again for listening to The Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom podcast, brought to you by Tech Systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe on your podcast channel of choice and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.theagilebrand.show. To get a copy of my latest book, Meaningful Measurement of the Customer Experience, visit my website at gregkihlstrom.com. Until next week, stay agile.